Press reports quoting the Chief of Defense Forces, General Aronda Nyakairima, that the UPDF can take over power if the political class, especially in Parliament, attempts to derail the country, have reignited the debate that was prompted by the same remarks by the Minister of Defense, Dr. Crispus Chiyonga. Many people have reacted about this statement, saying they are unfortunate in a country where democracy had begun to take root. FDC President Major General Mugisha Muntu said this is foolish talk. It's also counterproductive. And some people have said that these statements are diversionary, aimed at diverting public opinion on other serious issues. We'll be talking about that. We'll talk about the return of the 4GC. They say they are going to clean the streets tomorrow and thereafter address a public rally. Police says don't go there at all. We'll talk about the scenario that could unfold tomorrow and try to analyze the reoccurrence of the 4GC. Originally it was called A4C. Now it's rebranded. We'll talk about the graduation at Makerere and the PLE results as well. Our guests tonight, Dr. David Mushabe, Senior Partner at Mushabe, Munungu, and Company Advocates. You're most welcome, Dr. Mushabe.
Thank you, Edmond. Good evening, listeners and viewers.
Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, two-time Ugandan representative of the East African Parliament. You're most welcome, Honorable Lydia.
Good evening, listeners. Barisa John.
Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, a legal consultant at AKIJUL, also a commentator on social and political affairs. You're most welcome, Mr. Nicholas Opiyo.
Well, thank you very much, Edmond, and good evening to my fellow panelists, and good to see Honorable Lydia back here.
We're also joined by Honorable Stephen Mukitale Birahwa, Buliisa County MP, also chairman of the Committee on the National Economy. You're most welcome, Honorable Birahwa.
Thank you so much, Edmond. Good evening, fellow panelists, and congratulations, parents, upon the very good PLA results.
We'll talk about those results. We know that one of your people, one of the candidates, was actually your child who performed
he also owns school.
Apparently, you also know that you are an educationist, educational entrepreneur.
By the blessing of God, I've got a first excellent student in the country, the first time in my family. So Lydia's friend is a good addition to this.
All right, Dr. David Mushabe, you are a lawyer. Talk to us about the statements by the CDF. Are they lawful? Or are they against the Constitution?
Well, Edmond, I won't delve so much into the legality because, you know, I have read the papers. People are asking whether the statements are treasonable or not. But no government charges itself with treason. And everybody who is a treason suspect and out of government, when he captures power, he's no longer liable for treason because he's the one who determines the order of the day. So I wouldn't want to delve so much into that, but I know that also the Constitution seems to discourage that kind of talk. And secondly, I also know that at the same time, you see, the Constitution sometimes is like a Bible, and the Quran, they somehow contradict each other. It also gives the citizens the right to rise up. Let's hear you out. Go on. Yes. Now, so I wouldn't want to go so much into that, but I agree with the statements of General Muntu that these statements are merely diversionary. There are more serious issues in this country that should be attended to by the government, like the rampant graft. I mean, every day, billions and billions of Uganda shillings are discovered to have been taken by some members of the civil service or some members of the establishment, those in government. I think that statement is diversionary. These members, whatever was uttered out at Chankwanzi by Honorable Chiyonga and probably repeated by His Excellency or the CDF, I don't think they were serious about what they were saying. I think they realized that there is too much fair talk need to be veered and diverted to other things. You see, in the ancient days in antiquity, yes, there was a belief that the tides in the ocean were caused by chaos of dragon, or the dragon chaos. Now, when the dragon chaos stirred the oceans, boats capsized, ships drowned, and all that. That is why you see in Matthew 4, rather Mark 4, for the Bible, the Gospel of Mark, it talks about when Jesus was sleeping and they were on the Sea of Galilee, and the ocean was threatening to swallow them,
Capsize them.
capsize them. So they woke him up. They said, "Teacher, don't you care?" That statement itself, it is loaded. It sort of addresses to the perceived indifference from the apostles or the disciples as against Jesus. But he's also talking about how dangerous the situation they were in was.
I think the indifferent Messiah.
No, let me finish. I'm going to make an analogy. But when Jesus came, when he woke up, he said, "Peace." And he commanded the ocean to settle. In other words, he rebuked the chaos dragon. The chaos dragon we have in this country is corruption. We have impunity. But now when it is apparent that some members of parliament, when they talk vociferously about or and against corruption, they are taken to be indisciplined. They are threatened to be expelled from the party. If they are not members of parliament and they are members of NGOs, these are agents of corruption. They are agents of foreign powers. So there is a diversion, there is a spin in the government's position about corruption. Instead, it is these people who are being rebuked instead of rebuking the dragon, the chaos of rather the dragon of chaos. And this dragon of chaos in Uganda has so many heads.
Hydra-headed.
It is hydra-headed. And the members, those heads are known. They are the ones which have swallowed billions and billions. So instead of rebuking the dragon, it is the innocent people who are crying, saying, "Please save us, we're in trouble," who are being rebuked. That is where I'm most concerned. And the statement which was made regarding the possible overthrow of government by
Of our beloved president.
our beloved president, it is intriguing. How do you overthrow yourself?
You are a pastor of which church?
You see, how do you overthrow yourself? That is the first question that comes to my mind. How do you overthrow yourself? I think what we can read from that is that parliament may be dissolved, but the managers will remain in their positions. So even the threatening overthrow is a facade. So that is where I can stop for now, because I have very intelligent people in the studio
Looking at you.
looking at me. They also want to put something. But I plead with our government to rebuke the dragon of chaos instead of the disciples. That is the analogy I say. I'm not calling anybody Jesus, but that is the situation.
Honorable Birahwa.
Wow. A hard week, eh? It wasn't for the P7 good results. You see, I want to believe it is the public relations hitch. I want to believe it is people are being quoted out of context. Because if not, then the CDF is indicting himself. And at a point in time when this country, we think we are doing well in our level of democratization, possibly in the academia, the book by Professor Nsibambi needs to be reviewed, and somebody should write a question on democratization, the role of military in Uganda, and militarization of political question. Because we are in the information age. We are in a global village. What are you communicating when there was an American study trying to claim that Uganda may become a failed state by 2013, and you are saying a takeover is possible? Why are you confirming that? I want to plead with those who are paid to do public relations for our government to put their act together, because when we were coming from Chankwanzi, I thought the headline was going to be our resolutions in Chankwanzi, and we would be debating that now. We have a media center which is paid. I'm told the army has it. We have a Bokuleje. I don't know how this whole thing is being mismanaged to the extent that, because internationally, globally, what does this mean? that democratization process in Uganda has a question mark. This is the communication it gives, if it is true, because I still want to believe it's not true. We are in a global competitive world. We've just heard from Bank of Uganda and Ministry of Finance. Our biggest challenge is to balance our current account. We are depending on remittances of our JOs, where we invest nothing actually in JOs. We are depending on direct foreign investment, which was actually doing very well. We need technology transfer. Who is going to bring here money when he knows that it's possible to have a coup tomorrow? So, forgetting about our political quest for power and my other subjects I talk about of power retention, in terms of the common good, in terms of the national interest, in terms of the national security. And national security, if you look at the American Constitution, they also add, most importantly, the economic security of the country. We would avoid taking that path, so that we are working to make sure, and I want to speak more of as an analyst, as an advocate of nation building, than a part-time politician who is an MP today and I may not be there tomorrow, but with children who are of age and who have bigger stake than me. I think we should allow the new generation really have more say, and that's why for me, I think that because you see why I'm saying that the CDF is indicting our mighty UPDF, which is doing a good job now in Somalia and in the diaspora. That after 27 years, you are saying we have not yet transformed from a revolutionary army to an undoing of a movement to a professional army. That's the statement you are giving to public. So I would want to hear a correction of all these wrong messages which have been sent in what was seemingly a simple statement.
Right.
And the independence of parliament, the role of government, the role of executive, the role of the army. If you are saying, somebody was saying, yes, if you are saying that UPDF is now responsible for internal matters, when we know IGP Kayihura has been exchanging with politicians, now are we to define the role of the army to come and engage politicians instead of defending the national sovereignty against external aggression? So these are big challenges, and that's why for me, I have been saying, instead of people rushing for extra elections and it becomes electioneering, let's seriously think about deepening democracy by having a national dialogue. We discuss, we need to discuss. These politicians, if they have a problem, let's not overstretch the security. I've been saying this since the time of change of term limits. Let's dialogue. We are in the parliament supposed to dialogue. All these leaders must be dialoguing. Why are we leaving the security now to be in charge of the politics? That's called intervention of politics. That is, as politicians, it means we are lazy. We are not using the structures put in the law and the constitution. We are supposed to have an inter-party dialogue. We are supposed to have iPod. We are supposed to have structures where these parties meet and raise issues. Now they have failed. They have been with Kayihura. Tear gas seems not enough. Now we just see CDF also coming. That is not good for anybody who cares about the future of this country, and that would take our rating internationally very poorly, because we need remittances, we need direct foreign investment, we need technology transfer, but even without external factors, for the good of this country, we need separation of power, and we need the military and to separate its role from a civilian government.
Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, why are we hearing this kind of statements? Are they not treasonable? Should Kayihura not be looking for a certain gentleman to ask him questions?
First of all, all the people you have said have raised these matters. They are leaders in Uganda. We don't have to quote the constitution for them, because I think they know the constitution more than some of us, because the offices they hold not only require them to protect the constitution, but also to adhere to the laws attendant to those constitutions. So for me, I don't want to believe whether or not, you've asked the question, whether or not what they are doing is to them or not. But because Honorable General Aronda is a member of Parliament, and Parliament represents Ugandans, I think at an appropriate time the Birahwas of Uganda should ask him to explain more, because then would like to understand. Me, I understood that thing altogether. I've been asking myself, what does that mean? Maybe they could explain it, because if you tell me that the army is going to take over parliament, then you have to tell me why. Because when you say that politicians are unruly, you list the
reasons,
the tenets of the unruliness, under what circumstances they are unruly, and then they can tell us. So because for me, I've not understood it, it becomes very difficult for me to come and claim that I'm teaching them about the law they know. They read, and most of course, all of them participated in the constitution. But most important, the offices they hold are really about Uganda's constitution and the laws of Uganda. So, for me, friends, I think that, as it were, this is our country. We should all go to sleep and wake up wishing it well, wishing it peace. And even if there are issues that upset us, I would have loved to see the army commander move a motion in the House, or call his 10 other colleagues to meet the Speaker and say, you know, we are members of Parliament representing the institution of the army, which is mandated to protect peace within and the boundaries of Uganda, and therefore we don't like this and this and that. They can even list, so that the Speaker takes notice.
They have a forum, don't they? Army is in Parliament, so they could take it up there.
Yeah, and they are not one or two. They are 10 members of the UPDF. I'm saying this because I am following your talk. I just read this thing in the papers, and I'd like to say that there are many other avenues to which the leader of the army, who is Ronda, can use before he addresses a press conference. Because I saw it in the press, and I was like, oh, this is a member of parliament. He has the parliamentary forum. He can meet the Speaker. He can move a motion in the House. And for me, I never saw the listed areas. I also saw Dr. Kyonga raise that matter, but it was like a side view, because he's been negotiating peace. He's been negotiating peace for the region with the M23 and other members of on behalf of Uganda, because Uganda is the chair of the ICGR. So if our people go to the press and say these things, and they are our leaders, the question I can ask in my humble way as a growing up leader myself, looking at them, is that what are the parameters of unruliness? We had the incidents in Parliament at the end of the year, but for me, the moment I had meetings taking place between the President and the Speaker, I went to sleep. I was so happy, because these are supposed to meet and solve problems. They're supposed to solve problems. And they're not supposed to be just sing sirens and opening meetings, and for us to stand up when they attend the meetings, when they come to launch. No, yes, we give them all that, but that they have a duty to do. When they're in trouble, they should be on the forefront to solve that problem, because we give them so much. Our personal respect, we pray for them. I've been to church many times, but they always pray for the president, the ministers, and then some of us also have to go to our knees and say, okay, what the priest has said is what we want to see for our country. And therefore, I don't want to see panic and utterances from our leaders, who actually should be calming us, and they have a lot of space to have meetings, to go where they can go, and they are protected. So why do they want to use the media as the first call? To me, those are questions that I have, genuine questions I'm asking, because I really cannot comment on this matter until I've known why. There was no chance to meet the President, wasn't there? No chance to meet the Speaker. There was no chance to move a motion in the House. So there was no chance to, there's what they call the military high command. There was no chance there to raise the matter, so that we don't just see a boo, something like that in the press. Because supposing he comes tomorrow and says, you know, I was misquoted out of context, I mean, then we'd have wasted the whole spectrum time. So I hope that Mr. Honorable Birahwa, you who is here, is it real or not real when you go to Parliament after next week, so that we can come back and say, oh yes, he proved this case? Because the issue that we are raising at present in Parliament, they've been dealt with, and we have moved on. I mean, I don't know whether anybody who is still thinking we have really moved on.
Actually, this is a new subject of recalling Parliament. Nicholas, it's unfortunate I didn't sign the old one. This one I would sign.
Would you sign it?
You want to recall Parliament?
Well, Edmond, let's just state the principle. The foundation of our Constitution, stated in the preamble of the Constitution, is to avoid the things that are being said, the takeover of government, a coup. The Constitution was made with that in mind, and therefore set out very key milestones on how to change government. What the Rwandas and the Chiongas are saying, in the words really I agree with Muntu, is utterly stupid. It is utterly stupid. It is completely unlawful. It is completely unreasonable. Legally speaking, it doesn't make sense. In fact, if it was said by somebody else, said basically he would be at CPS now. Okay? But let us not get lost in the overall context. Look at what happened in 1996, in 2001 and 2011. Each time President Museveni is facing a serious challenge of his holding to power, he uses threats. In 96, when he was contesting against Semogerere, he told the Baganda, if you vote this man, Obote will come back. The Baganda, who were still aware of what Obote did to their Kavaka, were scared and therefore abandoned their own son and voted President Museveni. In 2001, when President Museveni came up against Kizza Besigye, he told the country, if you vote this man, Joseph Kony will walk to town. So it is a time-tested tactic of regaining control by President Museveni. The only difference is that this time they spoke through the army commander, spoke through the Minister of Defense, which I think Ugandans should not lose sleep over. President Museveni knows that a military coup is completely unfashionable and that he would be isolated, he will be made a miserable man if he led a coup against his own government. Believe me, he has no powers to dissolve Parliament. What's happening in Parliament is the exercise of a democracy. It should be allowed to develop. Those discussions are healthy. People disagree. In the US, Obama is always fighting with the Senate. These are useful processes. The third point that I wish to make is this. Around about 1998, a lot of money was pumped into a process called the UPDF review process. The intention was to wash away the Bush mentality from the army, from being an NRA to a UPDF force. Billions of shillings was pumped into this process. Consultants were hired from various parts of the world. The UPDF underwent a complete overhaul. They created different mechanized division, land forces. Arunda was then named CDF. It was Army Commander. This whole process was meant to professionalize the army. Our belief is that the army had been professionalized. What government was then embarking on, in fact, there's even a new defense policy. What government then embarked on was to do the same to police. Somehow that one died a natural death around about when the election was coming up. But that process was supposed to be replicated in the UPF. So the UPDF is supposed to be a professional army. That process was marked by retrenching and retiring, the old lot that were uneducated. You then began to recruit graduates, You then begin to ask President Museveni's son to go to the university to recruit people. So you have an army that is supposed to be now a professional, educated army, not the semi-literate bush war fighters. Now, what we hear from the army commander and the Minister of Defense appears to me to be indifferent to what the army is supposed to be. A professional army's duty is not to guard our politics. It is to protect our country, our sovereignty.
From external threats.
From external threats. So what the Rwandans are engaged in is sheer politicking and has no place in a modern democracy. And Ugandans need not lose sleep. The moment President Museveni gets control of what is happening in Parliament, nothing will happen. Because you see, he has never faced, because for the first year of his, whatever term you call it, second, third, or fourth, or eighth,
seventh
of this last election,
not eighth,
he has not slept. From day one to now, he's been dealing with divergent forces within his own party, now in Parliament, and then the growing, now you have the opposition talking about work to work, talking about,
they want to clean the city.
Air forces talking about tsunami. So President Museveni has been sleepless, he has spent sleepless nights. He's been stretched to the limit. He simply wants to gain control. And that exactly is the reason why he hasn't come out to condemn this. Because any serious head of state would say no. Those statements
are being overthrown.
Yes, he should have actually told these guys, come on, shape up. He hasn't said no. In fact, what happened in Shankwazi, I'm told from those who were there, he did mention the same thing. Arunda says those messages were well calculated. So I think that President Museveni owes this country to allay the fears that he is planning to overtake his own government by his own army commander and his own army defense.
Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, you are in Changkwanzi. What exactly did President Museveni say about that coup talk?
The president issued us a written statement of his speech. It was not his speech. I mean, it was not written in his speech. It was off the cuff, but he was trying to also explain the unruliness, and I think rightly so for what he has lived for is that he believes so much. Maybe it's right. Since the army is off the streets, the most disciplined institution in Uganda now is, of course, the army.
The most?
Yeah. According to prison.
The most disciplined?
Yes.
They even have fewer accidents in their motor vehicles.
That is his opinion. So they could maybe put us to order the rest of the Ugandans and make us move on. But I want to emphasize that it was not in his written speech, and we received the copies of his written speech, so we have to know what has been happening.
Well, this is Spectrum on Radio 1 for a break.
Stephen was there, so I understand.
Wow, this is a really nice place. So is there something you wanted to tell me, honey?
Sweetie? We've been together for a long time, and I want to take this to the next level. And I think we need to start by dialing 135*1#.
MTN Zone allows you to save more for the things you love. To activate, dial *135*1# to enjoy up to 99% discount on all your calls.
Honey, is that all?
No, honey. We should have voted for more soup, huh? Waiter!
MTN. Everywhere you go.
Heed the call of the wild this Valentine's with Reds. Buy Reds and win a getaway for 2 to the Wild Waters Lodge, plus other amazing prizes. See present posters for details or visit your favorite bar or supermarket. Happy Valentine's Day from
Reds. Crisp, clean apple taste.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum. Tonight we review the week. Our guests, Honorable Stephen Mukitale Birahwa, Buliisa County MP, Chairman of the Committee on the National Economy, Dr. David Mushabe, Senior Partner at the Mushabe Munungu and Company Advocates, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, two-time Ugandan representative at the East African Parliament, Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, legal consultant at AKIJUL, also a commentator on social and political affairs.
So I was saying that Stephen sat next to me in
Well, you're passing the buck. Why are you so...
He can prove me the written speech that did not have that statement.
Dr. Mushabe, can you paint for us a scenario? What happens if there is a coup?
No, really, that is rather speculative.
Well, let's look at ourselves.
Yes.
In 1971, Parliament was dissolved. For 8 years, there was no Parliament. So Parliament would go. The Constitution is suspended. In 1966, Milton Obote suspended the Constitution. What happens? Someone wakes up in the morning. There is a curfew. Roadblocks here, red blocks there. What would happen? Some people have born under this regime. They've never known about a coup. Give us some scenarios.
For me, what I'm thinking is that these threats will merely bring bad memories.
Well, some people don't even have memories of bad things. That they grew up in the capital, born under the NRM.
That is true. But those who are in charge of the systems in this country were born in those bad days. And these are the movers and shakers, the policy makers and the policy implementers in this country. So even the young ones who never witnessed those bad days, they listen to their seniors. So once you muzzle the seniors, you throw them into panic and fear, then you have taken care of the younger people.
Let's talk about it another way. If you have to explain to your child in primary 6 or primary 7 to prepare them about eventualities, what would you tell them? What can they expect? Food shortages, queues at supermarkets?
Well, I don't think they would understand it, and for me personally, I wouldn't even talk about those things at this stage, because that is pushing politics too far. But what I'm saying, really, as long as one of the causes where there is no per se an official statement from the government, because it seems that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
Uncoordinated.
Yes, you have Ministry of Information, which should be making such statements. You have the media center. We don't know what it stands for. Then you have the Tamil in the State House and all that. And the Ugandan, they are all claiming to have legitimate authority. statements. So here, this confusion of the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing, that is one of the causes of this confusion. The second one is the pork barrel system. I have studied the Parliament of Uganda. One of the ways to measure the Parliament, just watch the member about to cause a shuffle in cabinet. Every member of Parliament's dream is to be on cabinet. The media houses have carried stories of calling these members of Parliament saying, look, we'll get you onto the list. Yeah, we'll get you onto the list. Now, this pork barrel system, it means that if you are compliant, if you are disciplined, you are likely to be a minister. And that hope, dangling the carrot in the air, the sort of, there's dangling the carrot in the air, you are likely to become a minister. Then there is the stick. You can expel from the party. And then you are labeled a rebel. That is the science, that is the political science that is dominating Uganda right now. There's double standards. I agree with my brother there that if this statement had been made by somebody in opposition,
or the Lord Mayor, beloved.
Yeah.
It is actually reasonable.
Yeah, it is reasonable. The
CDF.
It is treason.
Yes. Commercial, actually.
Now, they would have locked these people inside and denied them bail for now. You know? But because it is the powers that be that made these statements, you can't touch them.
All right.
That is the selective application of the. But I'm suggesting one thing.
Yes.
Let me finish, my brother. I'm suggesting one thing. We witnessed how the Katebe system tried to bring discipline into UPDF. The errant officers in the army would be put on the Katebe.
Would be made idle.
In other words, they would be made idle.
Are you saying by Mugisa to
give them emptiness?
No, of course, Mugisa would not do it without the appointing powers approval. Now, we need to apply this same policy in Parliament, in the cabinet. A minister misbehaves, put him on a political category. If there is no evidence to convict him in court, at least put him on a political category. That sends a strong message to the culprit and the members of the aggrieved public. If the president adopts this policy, it will make a big difference. But now what we have seen, yes, there is no evidence, to convict these people, and they repent. They have repented. That is wrong. That's sending a message, a bad message to the public. We need political category.
My land friend, just one suggestion from me.
Yes, then.
I might be a small person, but if these guys don't stop what they are stopping, a private prosecution is possible against them.
Explain that to us.
Anybody who has committed a crime, in this case, apparently appears the defense minister and the army commander seems to be contemplating committing a crime. Okay?
So you can carry out a civil arrest.
Not even arrest, we shall file a complaint in the High Court and commence private prosecution against him. If only to make a point, because we know that a private prosecution can be taken over by the DPP and discontinued. But the point would have been made that you cannot be reckless if you hold public office.
Now, I want to comment on that point.
When I was still with Mushabe here on this talk show, at the time of Constitutional Amendment, I said, if we are not ready for genuine pluralism, can we have a benevolent dictatorship? You don't tempt Ugandans to go for a parliament if you're not ready for a strong parliament. You don't go for electioneering if you don't want democracy. So that you don't take, people are not just taken for a goose chase. You go real and be a Lee Kuan Yew type. And you deliver the deliverables without that pretense. 2, Uganda has been voted the tourist destination 2013. And we are busy be marketing ourselves that we can have a coup. You know, that's why I said, I don't know what our security system and these intelligence systems do in terms of economic intelligence. That is economic sabotage.
Oh, you think that's economic sabotage?
It is economic
sabotage. The 6 months without trial?
Those economic sabotage should be arrested yesterday. True. It took this country to develop investors' confidence, even our own Ugandans to send back their money here because of Amin's mistakes. And we are just talking about reversing that in a blink of an eye, and nobody cares about that. You see, capital flight happens in a blink of an eye. Mobilizing direct foreign investment and capital transfer and remittances of Ugandans abroad. Because I recently met an Amin soldier who is in America and is very comfortable, and but in the recent years his confidence to bring money here. Yes,
just returned.
But before he had no confidence in this country. So why are we as NRM?
We need to move forward.
Why are we really shooting in our own feet? Why are we eating our own success? Why are we reaching that level? And that's what I want to say. The other last point I want to make. Again, when we went into multi-party, I said we should have had a transition first. We rushed, did not have a transition. The transition should have had a national dialogue. We should have agreed how the army will be. We should have these things. Nobody took them serious. Now they are with us, and that's why I oppose the winner takes all. Even the other debate we're going to discuss about the opposition, I oppose the winner takes all in pluralism because I thought we would go for a government of national unity, because Kenya is doing it, did it the hard way initially after the conflict. Zimbabwe did it the hard way. But we could have a transitional arrangement where
Prime Minister.
We need political participation and inclusion, and we need more tolerance and coexistence.
What do you think the foreign community here? Let's talk about the Asians. What do you think they'll hear from those kind of statements?
Which one?
Well, the Asians who live here, who are invested here. We know the politics want to you, but Asians, what do you think they'll think?
You've asked me a question. I have not taken this matter as serious as you guys. I mean, you're running in. Yeah, you are going to hit the panic button. And if the intention of these people was to make everybody like you panic, I think they've achieved it. First of all, I understand under what circumstances these statements were made.
Maybe this will not
you overstretched the debate, you are lamenting, you are speculating.
Maybe a little long.
And even Birahwa wants a list to sign in the motion. Now,
it is true. I have the explanation. I have a reason now to sign.
Now, everyone, you want to recall Parliament because of this statement?
If there has ever been a reason to recall Parliament.
So I don't know.
Yes.
The coup would do a bit more than
you'd have 200 signatures.
Would have
Yes. Now, Edmond, my old friend mentioned private prosecution, but I don't want to be a pessimist.
Yes.
But the private prosecution some years ago, it was decided that it must be decided by the DPP. It must be sanctioned. It must be approved by the DPP.
So you can't quite
even those who want to prosecute must write to the DPP and say,
no, really, such thing.
Now, if the powers that be tell the DPP, stop that nonsense.
So the point would have been made.
Yes, the point would have been made, but we want to avoid that. But what I was wondering about was refocusing the future of the nation. We started with S6 we started with university graduates to S6 equivalent in Parliament. Now, the majority of the UPDF have even never graduated from primary. Yes, granted, there are some well-learned men, well-educated men in the UPDF, but then that means it was going to be a government of just a handful of people. But by and large, if you're going to include all the UPDF to refocus the future of this nation, then you're going to refocus use the illiterate to refocus the nation.
Let's go forward. Let's talk about 4GC. Tomorrow they plan to clean up the city and thereafter go and address a rally. What does it tell us about the times? They had gone quiet for a while, now they're back.
You see, they say one thing and then they do another. So that's where the problem is. The cleaning of the city is a KCCA program, and it is called City Yangi. I think that's the whatever the name. And normally they call upon the public. So even me, I would have loved to go and clean the city. But if there is a group going there and it is tagged to have intentions of making statements that will bring tear gas, then some of us will not be there because we don't want to be peaceful. And there's always a communication gap or disagreements between they are called 4GC.
Forgotten my country.
And
they love this country so
the
much.
police. For some reason, they've never agreed to be on the same page. So that's why we have challenges. Actually, KCCA has to reorganize themselves on how they call us because they may have a problem of the type of mix they get because they are going to have children there. I heard them talking about children who went for the Uganda Chisakati. Then they have the 4CGs. 4GC. Then they have the Wananchi like myself who lives in Kampala, and I think Kampala is my city, and I'd like to go in my own way as a citizen, not attached to any groupings. So they need to refocus maybe because for every group that goes there, it has its own, maybe it may have implications. Why is it that now we are discussing it, and why is it that the police has issued these statements about their participation tomorrow? It's because they are smelling some. So yeah, I'd like to say they are smelling a rat, as it were. But so I'd like to call upon KCCA to make sure that when they invite us for cleanings about cleaning, and then maybe the politics is for another day, or the fights between the police and the F4GC is for another day, because I would not love to see young children or normal Wananchi like myself go to clean our city and then you end up in tear gas.
David Mushabe, 4GC, will you be there tomorrow?
No, I don't think I'll be there. I would love to be there, but I want to be there. My gut feeling is that this is a disguised political rally. And to that extent, then the police is justified to be apprehensive. Why? If you want to know a man or any person's character, you look at the past behavior. So that you may, the track record, so that you may be able to predict what he's likely to do in the next step. I love these guys, they are all my friends. But I think this walk to work, when it failed, they said, now let's try to do something wrong. I really want to be wrong. But if this is the hidden intention or agenda to, and they mentioned it, they said, we are going to clean, then we have a rally.
Maybe that's why I encourage people to clean their neighborhood.
I saw my brother Mpuga on TV say, we are going to clean our city, this is our city, then we are going to have a rally. The question that came to my mind was, what type of rally? Is it
pitch cleanliness, perhaps? We don't know.
Probably pitch cleanliness. If that is the case, then that's okay. But why the police is apprehensive, I suspect what is causing them to be apprehensive is because if they allow this as a genuine thing, then somehow in the middle down the road, it turns out to be something else. Now you have had children are going to be brought in and all that. It will give a bad international image to this country. You tear gas school children. And I think the strategists of the for the 4GCs, I suspect that's what they might have in mind. So now, if we don't want to tear gas the children, then we withdraw. Then the 4GC achieves its goal. If you tear gas the children, you have lost
your image. Television cameras.
Even then, the 4GC has scored internationally. Internationally, to depict, to appear that this is a brutal government, brutalizing children, innocent cleaners of the streets. So for me, I have mixed feelings. I would want us to do it.
Clean the city.
Yeah, but to clean the city.
Forget about that.
The past record seems to suggest that there is something more than meets the eye.
Well, but I've done it before. The BCJs have cleaned cities suburbs. Nothing happened.
Oh, wonderful. If they can do, I told you I want it to happen.
What's your reading?
I don't support any any reckless methods of making political statements. I know there's a quest for political space, given some constitutional mistakes we made. I've always said, the leader of opposition, now we are talking of a mayor not being able to clean. It has a lot of legitimate concerns. But I would not want anybody who puts this country and the population, because whatever we're trying to, even if we want power, we shouldn't just have quest for power for the sake of it. We should pursue power mindful of the harmony of the country, mindful of the peace of the voters, of the taxpayers, of the private sector, which pays to make us politicians what we are. We should be mindful of them, and if we are not, then we have a problem. But I'm always concerned about how we fall into the trap of the opposition. The opposition want to portray to the world we have no space. So when police is there with tear gas, the world is confirming, actually this media, these guys have been saying something. So when last time children were hit by cancers and died in a bus, was it a Costa? So we seem to be falling so much into the trap. How I wish the method of approach would also be different, so that they are caught also in their own act. But the way they do it, we fall prey, we fall into the trap, and we end up giving a very bad image internationally, but even locally. And for me, if I was the mayor, for example, the Lord Mayor, I would go to my council and compliment the efforts of Madam Jennifer Musisi and pass a council resolution to strengthen the city young. And we work together. I don't think the police has the audacity to allow Jennifer Musisi City Young to move on and stop the mayor. That would be that.
Well, but when the mayor calls council meetings, Jennifer doesn't show up.
This is the area of engagement. Actually, in Parliament, back in Parliament, there is a response we are pending from the Prime Minister and the leader of opposition on how they intend to increase collaboration and exchange and how we can work, including these districts. I like the Kambule experience. Salam Sumba is working with government. We should go into more of that.
Experience under Norbert Mao.
The Norbert Mao would go to the president, and actually when you check the money which was going to the government in Gulu, Mao was taking the show because he was more organized. He was not sabotaging any government program. So we need to know that this country belongs to all of us, and that's why for me I think there are mechanisms already within our legal framework which are not being operationalized. So our laws on multi-party, our local government performance, the KCCLO is all on test. Is all on test. That can you have somebody who is elected by the people but has no say in his own city? Right. Because we have put our partisan colors above the national interest. If we did that, the mayor would go to the council, Jennifer would finance them as an accounting officer and make sure that even as city residents would want to have this cleaning every Saturday because we are all residents of the city.
Nicholas.
Well, Edmond, when Madame Jennifer Musisi went to KCCA, I think she took a tour in Rwanda. In Rwanda, you have what they call the Uganda, where every last weekend of the month, the entire country is cleaning up. Okay? This is a welcome effort. And then see, they've tried to do their best. They've put billboards, they've called people and called companies to take part in this process. Even
when you're a visitor in Rwanda, they come to the hotel a night before and bring you gumboots and invite you to cleaning. And they've got to the city. So I think that
I skipped it the time I was there, but anyhow, gone.
And with the Kavaka, it will even be faster.
If I can just make my point, these are genuine efforts that we must embrace. And I think that juxtaposing this process to the 4GC process undermines what was a very good program for our city. And the message has to be very clear that what Pastor Lirwani's colleagues and Mpugas announced was not a KCCA program, rather it was their own program with the Lord Mayor. Because I spoke to folks at KCCA this afternoon, people at the legal department, and I said, did you guys actually, is this your program? They said no. So I think the point has to be made, the media has to know, people have to know that what is being called for by the messages and their group is not a KCCA program, but their own program. Secondly, there is a mutual suspicion between government and the opposition, especially the Walk to Work 4GC movement, based on past experience, you know. Now, this mutual suspicion could be addressed better by the police. You see, the police is now saying they are managing an unlawful assembly, even before an assembly has been constituted. You know? The ingredients for an unlawful assembly haven't even been met any one bit. I think the police is being rather too quick to react. They could have done this better.
But there is a precedent. We've seen it come before.
If a man comes before you, you judge him on the merit of the case before you, not based on...
But you look at the precedent as well, what is done before his track record.
You know, but that's court's work. The police has got to investigate facts on the basis of what they have before them. Right. I had the police deputy spokesperson summoning somebody at 2 a.m. in the morning. You know, it doesn't work that way. I think that it does government a disservice. It does government a disservice to react the way they do. My view is engage these guys more constructively, not with the view of charging them for a crime. Because no crime has been committed.
Let's talk about education. Graduation at Makerere, PLE results released. Let's talk about the education system in general. Is it relevant? Does it create job makers?
The education system in Uganda is one of the best actually in the region, because most of up to today most of our many East African parents bring their children to study in Uganda, and those of us that have gone through the Ugandan system of education, we are able to deliver, but there has to be education plus. I'm really very passionate about values, which you may not necessarily get in schools, except for those of us who went to the real schools like Gayaza High School, because in Gayaza we did not only pick skills, but we also picked values. That makes us different. I mean, I don't need a supervisor around me to deliver. That one is known everywhere I've been. We are hardworking, we are target oriented, we are professional, we are accurate, and we are honest. It goes for most of the Gayaza girls, and that has to do with values. So we need to look at their values, but also the role of the parents is very important. I'm talking about a holistic approach to education, vis-a-vis the results that they announce. Because what people focus on these days, and which is unfortunate, is how many points did you get? You got 4, then you have passed. Passing is bigger than the 4, 5 points. Those points are important. The ones that you saw the other day in Makerere, the whole of this week, there have been graduation gowns and whatever in Makerere. But beyond that, and beyond that, the bigger chunk that makes a whole educated person are values, are ethics, are also most important work ethics. And that I'm going with the issue of what you're asking about unemployment. You will never get employment easily. I want to add that if you don't have the component of what I'm talking about. Yeah, people look at you and say she has the skill, but also she's easy to deal with.
Yes.
And also she has good manners and she respects, and then they'll get you a job. So I thought that I should make that it's a combination of many things. And we always lose the point, because somebody has a certificate degree, they go running around and making me say, oh, I have my degree in this, I don't have a job. A job is just bigger than having that degree certificate.
Dr. Mushabe?
Yes, I think it is
half a minute.
It is good that we have had so many students graduate at Makerere
and Gulu University as well.
Yes. Now I'm seeing 248 got first class.
Yes.
I taught at Makerere, and the department where I taught, they used to give me guidelines. Only this percentage should get A. Then this percentage B, then C and onwards. And I refused. Yes, I said, look, if a student writes me what I want, I give him or her an A.
Doesn't matter if he's
and I fell out because I gave honest A's. I didn't want to cheat. That was to me corruption. But also, the challenge we have is that civil service is more attractive than even private sector. Look at all these billions flying around. They have gone through the hands of civil servants. Now, what motivates these newly graduated people to join the private sector?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. As a beneficiary of a very exclusive ivory tower system of only about 1,000 admission in Makerere, then the only university,
government sponsorship,
I must say I commend Ugandans upon this fundamental change, numerical, in terms of the so many numbers of universities. I have lost the count. But in terms of quality and relevancy of the curriculum, we should have fast-tracked more polytechnics than universities. Government should have put money a decade ago in more polytechnics. I was against changing these chambogos, ITEC, and into universities. That craze was not necessary, because if you fund polytechnics in business, in vocational, in technical, plumbers, all these areas, they can afford private university on their own. But unfortunately, we have overstretched, and now we have a problem there. And again, in primary, we should stop this primary much as machine can excel.
Yes.
This exam-oriented is wrong. Somebody should go to exam day only look for 50%. After getting continuous assessment 50%, it would.
You get.
Well, first, Nicholas Mao articulated very well, and we go to conduct a description and then study. But I think that what we need to look at is go beyond numbers and look at quality. Look at retention. Look at because people who join, look at how they enter and how many come out. We fail to retain, especially the young child in school, because the sanitary pad, because of feeding and all kind of things. Our girl children must be retained at school and must graduate.
Thank you very much, Lydia. It's not about speaking. Police accountant, chairman of the committee, on the national economy, parliamentary and spectrum, Dr. David Mushabe, senior partner and chairman of the advocate, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, two-time general of the staff, parliament and legal service as advocate, also commentator on some of these people. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond, to Spectrum Club.
Ladies and gentlemen, we unveil Sydney in a